You are listening to the Mary Jane Society podcast, where you will meet entrepreneurs, cultivators, scientists, doctors, and inventors in the cannabis industry.
I'm your host, Pam Schmiel, marketer and publicist in the cannabis industry. NFL great Ricky Williams is well known for publicly advocating for cannabis and its therapeutic benefits by missing a football season and giving up millions of dollars because he tested positive for cannabis. He joins the show today to discuss the importance of using his fame to advocate for plant medicine. We discussed his new line of hemp-based products and future plans for beverages, psilocybin treatment centers, partnerships, and global expansion. I learned that Ricky Williams is a genuine advocate for the plant and really enjoyed meeting him. Let's welcome Ricky. I'm wondering how you're tying in, I guess, your past experience, your knowledge, being a certified ganja, and how you're standing out with your brand.
I'm an advocate, and for me, I thought the best way to be an advocate was to start a brand. Because people, advocates talk, but as far as doing something, it just made sense to me to lead by example and to make my advocacy real, to put something on the line. And so, obviously, like you said, there's a lot of great cultivators out there, but in reality, most markets are not very mature. So having good flower doesn't make you a good brand at this point in time. They really don't have much. They don't really have that much to do with each other in most markets. And, in America, we're capitalists. So really, the people that are doing the best for the most part are the people that are most well funded. Obviously, there's people that have blown a lot of money, but yeah. So ours is a long play, and for me, I feel like I'm advocating for the plant and what's possible with the plant, and the way people talk about cannabis is they're normalizing it, but I feel like we're going above and beyond that. Our tagline is "Spark Greatness," and we think the plant has something special to offer beyond just medical cannabis, but there's something more here, and we're working behind the scenes to try to amplify that message.
Yeah. So, but still, are you involved in like choosing the different strains or working with your cultivators in different states? Just even based on your own preferences. Is that how you approach your brand, or are you just leaving it up to expert cultivators to choose those specific strains? And I understand so many people don't understand the nuances of the terpenes and all the different cannabinoids and the different types of strains that are out there. So I was just wondering how involved you were in that strain selection in the different states.
Yeah, of course I'm involved. Anything that we put in our packaging, it has to be cleared by me. But for me, what's most important are the conversations I have with our partners and the cultivators, and the way that they think about the flower, the way that they cultivate the flower, and just the biggest thing with my ganja training is just appreciating how to take care of the flower, from seed all the way to mylar or jar. And so it's little nuances, when I walk around a grow, I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for attitudes of the cultivators. I'm looking for the attitudes of the people that work in the cultivation. I'm looking for, are the plants happy, and what does it feel like when I talk to the cultivators about their process? Because the consumer has no idea what's going on behind closed doors. And so I think the advantage I have is that I do have the ability to have a sense what's going on behind closed doors and make sure as best we can that we're putting the best products in people's hands.
And how many states are you selling in now for just your flower brand?
We're in seven markets right now.
And so when you're working with like these different cultivators, and you're not doing any manufacturing yet because you're just strictly flower, no infused pre-rolls.
We have infused pre-rolls. we're a brand, and so really our capabilities are directly connected to our partners in each of the markets, and partners that are more advanced in manufacturing, 100%.
Hmm.
We did a lot of R&D on edibles with Tilt in Massachusetts, and so I think the advantage is we have a big large diversity in different partners, and so we get to do and experiment and learn different things from each of our partners.
And I've also read that you'll attend like pop-ups in the different stores or different pop-up locations to promote your brand. Maybe that's not something you do all the time, but I'm just wondering. I actually saw somebody post something on Reddit saying, "Oh, that they met you at a pop-up and how much it meant to them." And promoting your brand, and just wondering like what kind of things you've learned from people who are interested in your product, or how helpful that's been, um, promoting your brand at these pop-ups.
Yeah, I mean it's been great. I mean, I enjoy it. I get to travel around the country, and I get to learn that there are different markets, and each market is different. I think part of that is where they're located in the country and how staunchly it's been regulated for the past 50 years. So it's cool to see, right? There's different consumers in Oregon and Washington and in Pennsylvania and Massachusetts and Florida and Arizona. So yeah, I mean, I'm all about a diversity of experiences, and so I really enjoy promoting the brand. And yeah, when we first launched, I was doing a whole lot of pop-ups, but um, not so much anymore. I feel like we've established ourselves um, that way, and now it's really about uh, expanding our offerings. Because I mean, some people might argue that cannabis has already become a commodity, especially because most of the players in the market are MSOs. And unfortunately, MSOs are more about profit than they are about the flower. So um, it's an interesting time right now, and again, in my mind, anyone in the industry right now, they're advocates, because we don't have federal legalization, so it really limits what we can do as a business. I mean, if you compare this industry to every other industry, I mean, we're handcuffed in so many different ways. So, I think we just have to keep fighting the good fight and doing things the right way and opening doors. And I mean, that's been my philosophy since 2004 when I got in trouble for cannabis. It has a bad reputation, and the only way to change that reputation is to create a good reputation. And I think that's what we're working on.
Well, and then kind of going back to MSOs, I've seen some MSOs kind of working with, say, legacy cultivators to try to bring in authenticity and into their fold. Is there anything that you're seeing that you're impressed with, any MSOs?
I was impressed with what Tilt was doing. That kind of fell apart, but it's difficult, because on the outside, everyone thinks, people talk about the green rush, but the green rush is over, and a whole lot of people were burned by the green rush. And so even the MSOs are having difficulty raising money. And so we're at an interesting place where, but I think this happens a lot in business, where we're seeing that we're forced to collaborate and work together. And
Yeah.
I see that going on more and more and more as the people that can't hang are falling to the wayside, and the people that can hang are learning a lot and gaining a lot of expertise. I mean, I just think of how much our team has learned in the past 2 years about business, about cannabis, about partnerships. It's making us better and better.
Yeah, when I was doing my research on you, I've seen that you really do a lot of, that you engage in a lot of partnerships, which it seems like more than others, that you're moving and shaking in different states and areas by developing all these great partnerships to boost
And
you and use your
that's
influence.
well, that's our advantage. The biggest advantage of fame is it opens doors.
Right.
And so, I think we all have something to offer, and I think fame is access. And so
Yeah.
we've put together a great team that's learning to capitalize on that access and do really good things. And because of my story with cannabis, I have a lot of credibility, and I represent authenticity. The story, I gave up millions of dollars for the plant.
Yeah.
um, and we're working on, how do we make the most of that goodwill and turn it into helping people, educating people. I think that's really the biggest hole right now in the market, is just the lack of education. And when something is stigmatized or made illegal, it's not good for people learning about it.
Yeah.
But thank God that's changing.
Yeah, yeah, no, I know that. I think that's one of the biggest obstacles too. So, so I guess then talking about your new partnership and your expansion, your business expansion into hemp, like everybody else is doing, I assume it's based on trying to uh, take advantage of the loophole and for better brand awareness. Was that the motive behind doing a hemp line for your?
That's what the business guys, that's the kind of talk the business guys have. But like I said, I'm not a I'm not a business person, because if I was, then I'd have to talk like that. You know, I, I've been big on hemp. The first company I launched in the cannabis space was a CBD company. And to me, it's because of the regulations. Certain people in the country have access, and certain people don't. And so I'm big on hemp, is because the loophole is allowing more people to get access. I mean, there's a dark side because it's not regulated very well, but we can control what goes in our products. And so I'm all for access to cannabis, and that's why hemp was important for me. And as you said, from a business side, I also think it's cool that, I mean, it's kind of late. I really wanted to jump into hemp a lot earlier, but still, I think it's powerful for people to see products in the dispensary and people to see products outside of the dispensary. And because we have the potential to become a national brand, I think we can do a lot for cannabis, and our business can reap the rewards if we can get the messaging out. I think so much of cannabis right now is being marketed to people who are already consumers. And I think we have the advantage to be able to recruit new people into the cannabis space.
Right. Oh, okay. I didn't even look at it that way, but yes, I mean, it really does open up doors to a lot more people getting access to it, and having someone like you behind it with, tested, good quality products, because it's a little fast and furious and wild west out there with hemp. So a lot of things are going to go wrong. So if some, a company like yours and other reputable companies can kind of lead the way, I think that's a really good thing too. And it might even take over everything, the way, legal processes are going right now.
Exactly. I
You
mean,
don't know where you're going to end up.
yeah. I mean, and we can do so much more with hemp. We're not so regulated. We can do more on social media. We can put things in goodie bags for the Oscars. We just have so much more flexibility.
Yeah, yeah.
We can take advantage in a positive way of the lack of regulation on the hemp side.
Oh, are you also thinking about doing beverages? I didn't see that.
We are, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had several conversations with distributors and manufacturers for beverages. Yeah, and again, it's starting to spill over now, but I think our sweet spot is, we can reach people outside of the cannabis space. We can do events outside of the cannabis space and educate people and bring in new consumers.
And are you planning on doing just a regular drinkable seltzer beverage, or like, drink sticks are really popular right now, or those shots, enhancers?
Yeah. I'm leaning towards something that's not gimmicky, but actually provides usefulness, functionality to users. And so we've been talking about a recovery drink and a pre-workout drink.
Oh, okay. Well, I figured you'd probably be going into the healthier sports type drinks. And there's some really great functional wellness ingredients out there.
Exactly.
Yeah, that everybody's playing with right now. And maybe that's where, even functional mushrooms come in and things like, yeah, there's a lot of really good functional kind of ingredients out there. So
Yeah, I mentioned my first company we launched was in the hemp space, and it actually was. So I've studied herbalism for 20 years. Wow, 20
Uh-huh.
years. And so my first foray into cannabis was combining cannabinoids with medicinals, with botanicals. And so yeah, that's really where my passion lies. I mean, in my studies, and cannabis is an herb, right? In my studies, number one principle is we typically don't give single herbs. You
Yeah.
know, is that when it's kind of what when people talk about the entourage effect is in herbal formulas, they use the herbs to support each other. And so it's, you know, it's like doing something by yourself or doing it with the team. And if you got the right teammates, you can be more effective.
It's like the stacking process that they seem to do in functional wellness products. Okay, so what is your, like, if you just were going to combine off the top of your head today, like what are some of your favorite uh herbs or things that you would like to include in a drink that you probably have mixed yourself at home?
Yeah, you know, I think my training is more of not single herbs, but how herbs work together. And so in Chinese medicine, they have something called du hao, and it means that we don't really look at single herbs so much, but we look at what herbs do when they come together. And so what I did is I started off with a list of what people were using cannabis to treat. And then I went in my reference materials and I looked at combinations of herbs that were also used to treat the same thing. And in herbalism, when we talk about an herb, we talk about what body systems the herb treats, and we talk about what function the herb treats. And and so the way that cannabis is talked about in Chinese medicine is that it smooths things out. You know? And so in Chinese medicine, they would use cannabis to treat epilepsy because epilepsy, what they call it, wind. Someone has the shakes, you know, um, and and for them, they say it has the ability to smooth things out. Also, headaches, headaches, and so there's people that have suffered from headaches realize there are different types of headaches, and a good herbalist, right, will use different herbs for different types of headaches or even different people's constitution. So trying to take this philosophy into the mainstream, we find things that are safe, herbs that are safe. I think one of the safest herbs that's pretty much good for everything is ginger.
Mm.
Most people know about that. Turmeric, a lot of people know about that. We created a headache vape when we first launched the company. It was called Headies, and it was cannabis, feverfew, and white willow, which is and white willow is the main ingredient in aspirin.
Right.
And as an example, I got the idea. I went to visit my dentist, and we were having a conversation about pain meds, and he was saying that with the pain meds that he prescribes, there's the opioids to help someone feel better, and then there's the medicinals that actually the anti-inflammatories, and they combine them together. And when I heard that, I was like, why aren't people doing this with cannabis? And why I like this approach, because it helps us expand the conversation about what is cannabis, what is an herb, and how can we start to use them. And it gets into the point where one of the questions I get from fans and from most people is, what is your favorite strain, or do you like indica, or do you like sativa? And my answer pretty much all the time is I say it depends. That it depends is what, if we're consuming something that has an effect on us, we want to be clear on what effect we want it to have based on how we feel in the moment. And so if I wake up in the morning, I'm already kind of on edge and I'm a little bit anxious, and I smoke a sativa, or something that's more sativa leaning, then I tends to increase my anxiety, And if I'm already really tired and I consume a heavy indica, I get frustrated because I want to be working, but I'm so tired, I just want to lay down and watch television. So and this is part of the education, is by first understanding oneself, right? Do you lean towards being more anxiety prone, or do you need to kick in the butt to get going, right? And then you can start to experiment with different terpene profiles, different cultivars, to see which one, when you're in that mood, right, is the most helpful. And or again, when I'm up too high and I have to get up in the morning, I need to go to sleep, I will turn to a heavy indica to help me calm down, relax. Or if I'm going to do yoga, I find indicas really help me get into my body. It really helps improve my awareness of what's going on in my tissues.
I haven't been able to consume and work out. It just does, I don't know, it just doesn't work out for me. It just, maybe I'm not using the right strain, but I've tried that because I know a lot of people talk about that enhances their workout, but I haven't found that right strain. And I was just talking to someone who was also mentioning different functional wellness ingredients, and she said that a really popular one in South America is canna, that she keeps hearing about a lot. Have you heard of that
Yeah.
one?
I've heard of canna. I haven't used it much. I mean, the herbs that I've studied are more traditional Indian herbs, Western herbs, what they're called, and Chinese herbs. But I haven't used or played too much with like herbs out of Africa or South America so much.
Okay, she said it's a succulent and it's becoming very popular. And I think it's like a big energy booster. And she just said a lot of people are using it now. So
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of personal experimentation. And I talked earlier about access because until you have when I first started learning about cannabis, I moved up to Northern California back in 2004 when I retired from the NFL. And I came up here to study herbalism, and I didn't know that it was one of the cannabis meccas in California. But slowly, people recognized me and started gifting me flower, and I kind of was like, "Whoa, I like this place." And then I realized because in 2004 there was a medical program in California, and so I got my recommendation, and I purchased 5 pounds of flower. And because I was up here studying herbalism, I had tons of herbs to be able to play with and experiment and kind of figure out what works for me. And right now cannabis is so expensive, especially in legal markets with the taxation. So it's challenging and difficult for people to have enough access to really figure out what works for them.
So true, so true. It would be nice to have a whole, a sample packet of some great stuff to just mess around with. Oh gosh. Well,
Exactly.
yeah. So, okay. So I guess kind of, just winding it down into the psilocybin territory. I just feel like there's been so much news lately. There was a company, a manufacturer in Oregon that just got their first manufacturing license for psilocybin edibles, and their seed to sale. And I think even there's another one up there, and you just keep hearing people are really talking about it. And I feel like there's a lot of people in cannabis who have cannabis brands who are also thinking of expanding their product line into that. So I know that I read that you have a partnership with a group that does assisted therapy centers up there. And just wanted to hear, now that I know all your herbal background, what are you planning to do with that? Are you thinking about doing psilocybin products, or, I mean, even if it's way down the road, and or developing these assisted therapy programs?
Yeah. So our partner for the assisted therapy programs is the same cannabis partner that we have in Oregon. And they've been manufacturing for years, different products. First it was CBD hemp, and then they moved over into THC cannabis, and now they're venturing into, like you said, assisted therapy. And it's wonderful, the work that they're doing and what they're pioneering. It's been a wonderful story. So I'm sure we will get into products, but for me, it's more about creating the space. All the research in psychedelics talks about the importance of set and setting. And I think, in my studies, when, reading about psilocybin, reading about cannabis, the term that was used is a sacrament, and when I first started reading the literature, I had no idea what a sacrament was. I recognized the sacred part of it, but I didn't understand it. And so of course I dove in and did more and more research. And when they say sacrament, I think the closest thing we have today is that they use it for mental health.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but most versions of mental health this days kind of exclude what we might call spirituality or connecting to the whole or having some larger purpose. And I find it interesting that most people I talk to who have experimented with psilocybin across the board, they use the word oneness, or that we've, this sense of being all connected to other people, you know? And in my mental health journey, the people that I've talked to struggling with mental health, one of the things that they've talked about is feeling disconnected. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the space that I love to play in, because I was disconnected until I found cannabis, and it helped me feel more connected and make choices in my life that led to greater and greater meaning. And so I see a lot of potential for the term that I use, plant medicine, you know, and people will say, well, psilocybin mushrooms are a fungi. When we say plant medicine, we're talking about medicinals that exist naturally in nature,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that humanity has a long history and relationship with these substances, and we are now just remembering. We are now starting to remember that connection, and I think it's a positive thing. But there's just so much misinformation. That my thing is education and encouraging people to go slow.
And so are these right, and like you said before, is you have to listen to your own body and experiment with the different things and how much you want to do. Yeah, I mean, I've done a little microdosing. I don't think I would want to do a full-blown psilocybin trip. I would be a little too
Mhm.
afraid for that. But
Yeah,
you know, but I mean, maybe if it was assisted therapy, I would try to.
that's what we found, because again, because of the misinformation, people are really afraid. There's this fear that they're going to lose their mind or that they're going to go crazy. And so creating a safe place and an open conversation, again, that's my big thing. And we've seen, it's unfortunate that it had to come to this, but it's a beautiful thing that because in Oregon it's legal now, that more people are willing to speak up about what they're suffering from, and they're willing to get help. And the changes we've seen in people, it's even beyond what I imagined. You know,
Yeah.
it's like something about, because a lot of the people that are coming from out of state, and so people are getting out of their normal environment and they're coming to this new place and they're trying something new, and they're having experiences that they've never had before, and there's an amazing healing effect. It's, again, like I said, it's been really pleasantly surprising to see the changes that people can. And it's not just, it's not just the plant, it's not just the psilocybin, it's that people are ready for a change and their minds are open enough. And I think the environment we create up there really allows them to have an experience and have the space to integrate it, and have people around, because so many of the traumatic experiences that people have gone through have happened with other people. And so to
Yeah.
be able to create that safe space where there's a witness to what people have been through, and a safe place to exercise it, to experience it and let it move. It's been a life-changing experience for me, and I look forward to doing a whole lot more of this in the future.
And I can't wait to see more in like like addiction, alcohol abuse, or opioid addiction, stuff like that, because they keep talking about the neuroplasticity, how it provides neuroplasticity, and like you said, opens up the new connections and things like that. So I'm really excited about that. Um, so yeah, oh, I'll be interesting to follow you and see how that's all going in the psilocybin space and
Yeah,
what,
I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, and what products you'll be coming out with, and I'm sure you will be, because
Mhm.
I think there's great products. And do you also stand by, or have you experimented with microdosing, or are you more of like you like the full, um, I guess, psychedelic effect? Have you
Per,
experienced that?
yeah, personally, I've seen microdose work miracles for people, but personally, I'm more of a macrodose person.
Okay. Wow.
Like my favorite way to consume psilocybin is in a ceremony or a ritual context. I was introduced to Native American shaman down in San Diego where I grew up, and he invited me to come onto the reservation and experience. They call it Wamkish. It's like a circular structure, and we light a big fire. We go up in the mountains and we gather cedar, and we come and we pray. Oh man, it's the reason I'm partial to this is because the first time I went and sat with them, I had this deep sense that I was part of like a long tradition. It's something about sitting out in the night and looking at the stars around the fire with other people. I just had this feeling that humans have been doing this for a very, very long time.
Right. Wow. And all the time you're tripping.
Yes.
So you're
and but it's we're tripping, but in their context, like they have a whole system. And so the first time I sat in the shaman, he just started talking, right? He just started talking about all the stuff going on in the world. And I, the rookie, right? The new guy, I was like, why are we talking about all this negativity? And he's like, just sit down and enjoy the process and see what happens, because part of the neuroplasticity is we have access to parts of our brain that we haven't had access to before, right? And so to consciously like intend something, right? To direct your thoughts so that they can go to those new areas and make new connections. Oh, I'm a big fan of the macro dose in a group setting. It's powerful.
Wow, that's okay. Well, maybe I'll get into that situation one day. I only tried it
It's
once.
scary. It's scary, but that's part of the healing, right? Because you go in and all the nerves are up, but then in the middle, when we're tripping, we're all there together. And we all go through something together and we all come out the other end. And it's beautiful. We sit in the circle and we share our experiences.
Oh my God. Well, I hope I do kind of get to try that. The only time I tried it was mushrooms a long time ago, sitting on a beach with a friend. And I saw kids diving into holes in the sand. And I didn't know how I was going to get off the beach, that kind of stuff. And that's my only experience. So I'm always like, oh, this was uncomfortable. I'm not sure. But
in my experience with most people, some people have wonderful experiences early, but what I've seen is usually the first 4 or 5 times, right? It's like doing anything new. You have to get comfortable. You have to be able to find your bearings. And most of us are not. I think athletes have an advantage, or high level performers, because when they're doing their thing, they enter an altered state and they're in a zone. And so we have practice functioning in that kind of altered state. But it takes practice if you haven't done it. Most people, it's so overwhelming to the system that it just takes reps, takes repetition. And the more you do it, you get more comfortable and you can start to explore more. And that's the same thing with working out with cannabis. It's just start slow, because when I first started consuming and trying to work out, I couldn't read, I couldn't do anything. But over time, as I just built it up, now I can't imagine reading without consuming first.
oh, I did try to microdose once and went to work out, and that was great.
Yeah.
It was just a little, just a little microdosing. And I was just on this level, and I was like, this is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it really does. They found it, right? When they talk about the runner's high.
Yeah, that's what I felt like I got. Yeah.
Yeah. They found it's, they used to think it was endorphins, but now they find it's the endocannabinoid system.
Yeah.
And so I think that there is this connection between athletes and altered states of consciousness. There's a group of people, a culture that lived in the eastern steppe, like up by Russia, Mongolia, up there, called the Scythians. And the Greeks wrote about them, and before they went to battle, they would get together in a group and they would have a tent where they would create a fire and they would throw cannabis plants, and they would all get together and smoke before they went to war. And they thought it helped them work together as a team and become more sharply focused. And they would do that before they hunted too. So like I said, we have this long history with these medicinals, and I think the more people are curious and start to learn how they've been used in the past, we'll get some new ideas of how we can innovate and how we can create them for the modern people, the modern day and age, because we have a lot of different stressors than they had in the past. So I'm looking forward to the innovation that's coming in the near future.
Yeah, and not to be a downer, but I really think it might really help in end of life situations. You hear about that as well. And, like consciousness, like you're saying, you have this altered state, but that whole consciousness thing that people talk about, death and
Oh,
right?
that's not a downer at all. I think that's a beautiful application. It's a
You're right. We
beautiful
need to talk
application.
about that more. Right.
Yeah,
We're afraid of it. It's like, oh,
yeah, it's happening to all of us. You might as well embrace it.
right. Maybe that's the time to get into psilocybin. So
Exactly. It's exactly that's a good reason to, right? Again, there's I think part of the neural pathways is we've been conditioned by growing up. And I think one of the reasons why in a lot of indigenous cultures that psychedelics are used for the initiation process, because they realize when a kid is growing up, right, they have to follow all the rules of their parents. But for them to be free and healthy adults, right, they have to free themselves from all that stuff and figure it out for themselves. And I think we've lost those structured initiations, and so we just have them unstructured, where teenagers get into substances, but there's no direction, and they don't have any idea why they're doing it. So hopefully, as we open up the conversation and we educate people more, we're going to see a lot of innovation in how plant medicine is used moving into the future.
So, but anyway, so I guess I would love to end on, I don't know if you have any thoughts or of strategy on global expansion. What are you thinking about there? What are your thoughts on?
Oh, we're talking about it all the time, all the time. One, because I just love to travel, and I only travel for work, so that would be a good excuse to get around. But I think if we look at, we talk about communities that have been, overly negatively affected by the war on drugs, and from the global perspective, it was the United States hard stance against cannabis and other drugs that created a ripple across the globe. And so I think as we right the ship here, and we're already starting to see it around the world, is that other countries will open up too. And I think when that happens, we get so much more of a diversity of experiences and knowledge to add to the pie. And so I think we're seeing this big reversal of this global trend that started with America, and I mean, but Canada, right? They're really the first ones to take that big step. And hopefully we're close behind them and starting to reverse the damage that's been done.
So again, using your fame, who you are, to kind of get that message out there, again, kind of what you've been saying through this whole time is using you as influence to influence the world. So as far as like, are you thinking of specific markets that you want to go into? What would be, where would you want,
we had a conversation about Germany for a couple of reasons. One, Germany is already moving forward. Two, a lot of people don't know this, but American football is pretty big. It's pretty big in Germany. And so, I'm a retired football player. I haven't played in over a decade. And so I see part of it is telling my story to inspire people, but more importantly, it's to inspire other athletes who are currently playing to tell their story. And my whole thing is, you don't have to go out of your way to push it, but to me, athletes are a great example because it's so stressful and we're asked to perform at an extremely high level, no pun intended, all the time. So there's just so much stress, but we have to show up. And so if athletes are consuming cannabis and it's helping them perform, that's a message that needs to get out into the world. And so my whole thing is just for people to stop hiding, their consumption and to start to tell their story. And if I can inspire other athletes to do that, that's really my goal.
Cool. Wow, that's great. I think that's a great way to end.